Putin was now living the same nightmare he had endured as a KGB officer in East Germany in 1989. This time in his own backyard. And he wasn't even president at the time. He was prime minister, having handed the presidency over to his associate, Dmitry Medvedev.
As the winter went longer and longer and got colder and colder, the protests got bigger and bigger.
As Putin saw people turning against him, Hillary Clinton weighed in.
The Russian people, like people everywhere, deserve the right to have their voices heard and their votes counted.
When Putin hears something like that, I imagine he hears Bush talking about Saddam Hussein. He hears that as they're coming for me.
There he goes.
They're trying to drive me from power. And what the hell do you know about my people and whether they deserve to have their voices heard? Like, I'll tell you if they should have their voices heard.
Russians had a lot of reasons to be angry.
Владимира Путина на должность президента страны.
That fall, it was announced that Putin would run for president again, for a third time. That meant he could potentially rule Russia until 2024.
Some people said, oh my God, I'm going to die with this guy in power.
A few months later, the elections for Russia's parliament were a farce.
We do have serious concerns about the conduct of the elections.
Hillary Clinton called out the election rigging. I don't think she realised quite how badly that was going to go down.
With his back against the wall, Putin turned the tables. He blamed the protests on Hillary Clinton, claiming that she was the one who incited them with her complaints about the election.
There are growing restrictions on the exercise of fundamental rights.
Quote unquote, she sent a signal. That was his words.
Putin's strategy propelled him to victory. In March 2012, he won re-election handily, fighting back tears after a tense fight to maintain his power.
Мы показали, что нам действительно никто ничего не может навязать.
He may have won the day, but Vladimir Putin never forgot about the woman who had kicked him when he was down.
Do you think he'd resolved, you interfered with my elections, two can play this game?
I think that that's the line of thinking that led him to the intervention. I mean, I'm totally convinced the Russians were meddling and intervening covertly.
U.S. intelligence concluded that Putin personally ordered a campaign to influence the American election, in part because he holds a grudge for Clinton's comments in 2011.
The other accusation...
Putin has denied that Russia was hacking the Democrats.
I don't know anything about that. You know how many hackers there are today. It's an extremely difficult thing to check.
The Russians allegedly focused their attack on a particularly weak target, the Democratic National Committee.
You could have broken into the DNC with a can opener. This took less work to get into the DNC's computer systems than it took the Watergate burglars to get into the DNC offices back during the Nixon campaign.
More than 1,900 emails released.
In the middle of a tight race,
the leak revealed transcripts from some
embarrassing emails mysteriously leaked from the Clinton campaign were all over the news.
WikiLeaks has released a new batch of
another round of stolen emails.
The Clinton campaign knows this could be a...
This latest leak, pretty much a Trump dream come true.
Donald Trump was delighted by Clinton's misfortunes.
Russia, if you're listening,
I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
Donald J. Trump will become the 45th president of the United States, defeating...
In the end, America's election went Putin's way.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton was quite negative about our country in her attitude.
It wouldn't be bad to get along with Russia, right? It wouldn't be bad.
And to the contrary, the other candidate, Donald Trump, was saying that we have to find some understanding.
When people like me, I like them. Even Putin.
Whom would you like better?
This is not the outcome we wanted.
Hillary Clinton suffered one of the most shocking defeats in American history.
I know how disappointed you feel because I feel it too.
At least in part, some observers say, because of the alleged hacking operation.
This is painful, and it will be for a long time.
Putin had apparently avenged his old grudge.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
And he may have achieved even more.
The 45th President of the United States.
If Donald Trump is in some way compromised, if the Russian government has something that it feels has on him in terms of leverage, that's a very serious thing. I don't suggest for a second that I have the answer to this question, but we can't just let this matter drop.
Up next,
a prominent Russian opposition figure has been shot and killed in...
4 of the shots hit him in the back.
Right out in the open, just blocks from the Kremlin.
The story Vladimir Putin might want the world to forget. February 27th, 2015. Nearly midnight. A man and woman walk across the Bolshoi-Moskovetsky Bridge, right next to the Kremlin. A highly monitored area, littered with surveillance cameras. All those cameras, but amazingly, this grainy, faraway video is the only footage that exists of a critical moment in recent Russian history. Inside the circle of what a Moscow TV station purports to be Boris Nemtsov and his girlfriend. Nemtsov was, of course, the well-known Russian opposition leader who led the protests in 2011. The station says that while this snowplow hides the two from camera's view, Nemtsov was killed, shot 4 times in the back.
A prominent Russian opposition figure has been shot and killed in...
4 of the shots hit him in the back.
Right out in the open, just blocks from the Kremlin.
So, who murdered Boris Nemtsov?
Это позорное явление. Трагическое и позорное.
Vladimir Putin condemned the killing, calling it shameful and impudent. And 5 Chechens are currently on trial for murder, but the court case plods along. In the meantime, doubts remain.
The assassination was extremely professional.
Russian-born journalist Julia Yoffe says that only one group could be that professional.
Nemtsov's girlfriend, who he was walking with, didn't realize he had been shot until the car was already driving off. It was quick and professional, and nobody has that kind of training outside the government.
Senator John McCain takes it one step further.
Vladimir Putin is a thug and a murderer and a killer and a KGB agent. He had Boris Nemtsov murdered in the shadow of the Kremlin.
This is personal insult. This is lousy behavior from a politician.
That is Putin's top aide and spokesman, Dmitry Peskov.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense. There is nothing to comment on.
Over the course of Putin's time in power, his regime has been accused of involvement in the deaths of many of its critics, including the journalist Anna Politkovskaya and the former KGB agent Alexander Litvinenko. The scholar of Russian studies, Stephen Cohen, responds.
There's not a shred of evidence, there's not a single fact to sustain these allegations, but they take on a kind of folklorish reality.
Тут господин Путин сказал!
The allegations that Putin might have played a role in Boris Nemtsov's murder may stem in part from the evidence that Nemtsov had been accumulating against the president.
Nemtsov was about to reveal information that would prove Russia's involvement in the conflict in Ukraine.
That Ukraine report was released a few months after Nemtsov's murder. But there was an earlier Nemtsov report published in 2012 that also was embarrassing for Putin. It claimed the president had 43 planes, 15 helicopters, and 4 yachts at his disposal, including one super yacht. Then there are the palaces. Nemtsov's report says there were 20 presidential palaces available to Putin at any time. One of the palaces, known in the press simply as Putin's Palace, was said to be worth $1 billion.
This is not true. This is actually perverted commenting of reality.
Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, says every world leader, especially the leader of a nuclear power like Russia or the United States, has access to state-owned homes and planes and helicopters that are safe and have secure communications.
Of course, he uses these vehicles, this plane, these residences, but it's not his property. The rumors about his wealth, the rumors about the palaces, has nothing to do with reality. It's just lies.
The rumors of Putin's wealth, well, some of them are simply staggering.
And some people, including myself, believe that he's the richest man in the world or one of the richest men in the world.
Bill Browder was once the largest foreign investor in Russia. Now he's one of Vladimir Putin's toughest critics. We talked in 2015.
You really think Putin is the richest man in the world? I really think that. And I'm not just saying that crazily.
Estimate his net worth.
200 billion.
Really?
I believe that it's 200 billion.
That would make Putin almost 2.5 times wealthier than the man whom Forbes says is the world's wealthiest, Bill Gates.
All these rumors, all these accusations about billions and billions of dollars as his fortune, this is not true. Don't believe in that. He's got nothing. He's got what he writes in his personal financial declaration every year.
Putin's most recent financial declaration says that he personally owns less than half an acre of land, a roughly 900 square foot apartment, and a 200 square foot garage, into which maybe he puts the vehicles listed in that document. A vintage Russian sedan, a Russian 4x4, and a trailer like this one. The document does not say how much Putin has in the bank or in investments. Top U.S. Treasury official Adam Zubin talked to the BBC.
I'm not in a position to give you figures, but what I can say is that he supposedly draws a state salary of something like $110,000 a year. That is not an accurate statement of the man's wealth.
But if Putin was getting rich, he surely wasn't the only one in Russia. Take this statistic. In 1996, when Putin had just moved to Moscow and begun his climb to the top, there were no billionaires in all of Russia. By 2014, Russia had 111 billionaires, according to Forbes. And while Moscow now has multiple Bentley dealerships to satisfy its bevy of billionaires, the average wage in Russia is less than $450 a month. That's lower than the average wage in China, according to Stratfor. But despite all the allegations, despite all the accusations, the fact remains Vladimir Putin is remarkably popular in Russia. Why? We'll tell you when we come back. The most powerful man in the world is also the most popular. Vladimir Putin's approval rating has soared as high as 86% in recent years. Consider that American presidents are happy when they break the 50% mark. How has he done it? Partly, it's the cult of Putin. He has mastered the art of the manly photo op. He rides horseback bare-chested, finds ancient treasures underwater. He rides a submarine to the bottom of the Black Sea, flies planes, fights forest fires.
There's something ridiculous
about a middle-aged world leader riding around shirtless on a horse like Conan the Barbarian after a dozen donuts. Who thinks this looks good?
Everything that we find ridiculous about Vladimir Putin is very appealing in a media universe that he controls absolutely.
Perhaps the foundation of the Putin juggernaut is a political truism no matter where you live. It's the economy, stupid. After the chaotic years of Boris Yeltsin, Putin stepped in and stabilized the country. And he rode the wave of ever-rising oil prices, which in Russia's resource-rich economy translated into rising wages and soaring stock indices. Then, in late 2014, the party stopped. Oil prices slumped, and soon after came Western economic sanctions. Vladimir Putin has navigated hard times well. He has slashed social spending, implemented an austerity program, allowed the ruble to fall, and his central bank has kept inflation in check. Putin is a fiscal conservative.
The outward seeming aspect of wealth looks closer to Dubai than it does to Moscow 30 years ago. It's just an amazing transformation.
Add to the economics Putin's secret sauce, nationalism.
Они не пройдут!
And it surged in 2014 after an invasion that shocked the world.
Bigger nations must not be allowed to bully the small.
Vladimir Putin grabbed a piece of Ukraine for Russia. The West was horrified.
That's the sort of thing that Adolf Hitler did in the 1930s. We thought those days were gone.
But it all looked very different through Russian eyes.
I have never met a Russian who accepted the notion of Ukraine as a totally separate state.
Of course, many Ukrainians deeply resented the invasion. But not Russians. They see it as the revival of a deep sense of power and national destiny.
Putin has given them their pride back. Russia is once again a great power.
Putinism is an ideology of social conservatism, of anti-Westernism, but above all, of national power. Putin might say, he has made Russia great again. Sound familiar?
We will make America great again. USA! USA!
Like Putin, Trump has used nationalism to boost his support. But many believe that Donald Trump is no Vladimir Putin.
Putin is a much more practiced, subtle, cunning player. He's playing, in poker terms, a couple of deuces at the highest level. He has reasserted Russia on the world stage from a position of relative weakness like nobody I can think of. That's an amazing feat of geopolitics.